Order the Zionsville Plan Commission meeting for Monday, June 17th. If we could all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Dale, if you could please take attendance.
Chris Lake,
Present.
Jim Hurst,
Present.
Cindy Madrick,
Present.
Dave Franz,
Is Dave online for us? No? Okay.
Nope.
If he comes online, can you please notify us? Thank you.
okay. Mary Grabanowski? Nope. Nick Plopper,
Present.
Josh Fedor,
Present.
we have five present,
Thank
two
you.
absent.
Next on your agenda is Department of Planning and Building monthly report. That is for information only. No action will be taken this evening. Next up, we have the approval of the May 20th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or changes they'd like to see in those? Hearing none, would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Are we able to do voice vote? All in favor of approving the May 20th, 2024 minutes, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes pass. Thank you. First up on our agenda are items for continuance or withdrawal. The first petition is 2024-21-Z. That is the Town of Zionsville South Village PUD. Does the petitioner want to make a statement?
Yes, thank you. As we were last in front of you, we thought this may be an issue, and I think perhaps the Plan Commission did. We have been working diligently, continuing to gather input on the PUD, including working pretty closely with some members of the Town Council. We believe that we will be prepared to be in front of you with a completed document in advance of your July 15th meeting, and we would ask that it be continued until that time.
Okay. Any requests for an interim discussion?
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
we are not prepared for that this evening, but we
Great.
would like to present to you something at the July 15th.
Great,
meeting.
okay, thank you. I do want it noted for the record, there was a post on social media that my firm, Delve Design, is involved with the PUD. It is in fact not. The drawing that was in question was a drawing that we produced pro bono for Zionsville for use in their CERTA presentation for the Ready 2 grant, and had nothing to do with the South Village PUD, so just wanted that on the record. Anybody have any questions or comments related to the continuance request? No? Can I-
Is 30 days enough? We believe so, and if not, we will certainly have something posted for additional public comment, but we believe that it is. We've got a round of edits that we're working on right now. We just didn't want to push it, and we didn't feel like it would be appropriate to get it to you at a late date in advance of tonight's meeting. So thank you for the question, though.
Can I get a motion to continue?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, the motion will be continued to the July 15th meeting.
Thank you. See you
Thanks.
tomorrow.
Next up on our continuance list is docket number 2024-32-MP. Petition, this is the Maples Minor Residential Subdivision, primary plat at 7860 South 850 East. Is the petitioner present? Want to make a comment?
Yeah. No, the petitioner isn't present the evening. Staff notified them that they must continue because they needed to
Hold
get a
on,
variance.
hold on. just a second. So,
Okay, sure.
pause till everybody exits.
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jody, sorry.
Yeah, staff notified the petitioner that they needed to get a special exception from the BZA prior to coming to the Plan Commission on their plat. So we informed them informed them they needed to continue. They made the request because they had already made notice, so we wanted notice to continue.
Okay. Does any members of the commission have any questions, comments? No. Hearing none, can I get a motion to continue?
So moved.
Can I get a second? All in favor of continuing petition 2024-32-MP to the July 15th meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, if there's no objection from Plan Commission, we have 2 items on the agenda that are administrative, that are the town of Zionsville. They relate to changes in the ordinance. I would like to move those to the end of the meeting so that we can move up items that are docketed cases that have petitioners present. Does anybody have an objection to that? So those would be 2024-39-OA and 2024-45-OA. One is a zoning, or both of them relate to zoning jurisdiction. So those will be moved to after docket number 2024-33-DP, which is the farm commercial buildings 3 through 9. Moving on, docket number 2024-36-Z, Town of Zionsville, lots at 11638 and 11644 North Michigan Road, rezone of 2 parcels totaling 1.29 plus or minus acres from the urban RSF2 district to the urban neighborhood B1 district, being within the urban Michigan Road overlay. Can we get a staff report, please?
Yes, I'll be presenting this item this
Thank you,
evening.
Mike.
Good evening, everybody. Item 2024-36-Z is a town-initiated rezoning of 2 parcels totaling about 1.2 acres along the west side of North Michigan Road. These 2 properties are currently zoned residential. Parcel 2 identified as 11818 property group. That site is undeveloped, and adjoining it to the north with address 11644 North Michigan Road, as Roger's pointing to the screen, the northern parcel is occupied by Gentech Associates with an office building. Both of these parcels are bordered to the north, south, and east with business zoning. There is residential zoning to the west of the parcel. We encountered the property owner of Gentech at 11644 North Michigan Road encountered a problem with obtaining a sign permit from our office. Our sign regulations prevent us from giving a sign permit for that property, even though it's occupied with a commercial use and operating commercially. Going through the background history of this site and this area, staff believes that the town erred in not zoning these business as the properties to the north, south, and east are currently zoned business. So we spoke to the Plan Commission, and it was suggested, well, while we're at it, why don't we also include the southern property, even though it's undeveloped. It also has residential zoning, not in keeping with the business zoning to the north, south, and east. So we talked to the landowners. They consented to the town initiating a rezoning on their behalf to bring those 2 properties into compliance with the comprehensive plan that supports commercial development along Michigan Road at this location, and in keeping with the development pattern as Roger's showing there, promotes office development at that location, and in keeping with the surrounding land uses to the north, south, and east.
Thank you. Being that you're staff and petitioner, that covers those comments. Do we need public? If there's anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against this petition, please feel free to come up to the podium. We would just ask that you give your name and address. Is there anybody online? If somebody comes online that wants to speak, just flag me down, please. Thank you. All right, any conversation, questions from Plan Commission?
No, this makes sense. Looks like it was an error somewhere in the past, and they came up to us, and down the road someday, we would most likely, it follows suit with everything around it, so.
Okay. I don't disagree. Any other comments?
Makes perfect sense to do this.
Okay. Can I get a motion then for
Sure.
this petition?
I move that docket number 2024-16-Z to rezone two parcels totaling 1.29 plus or minus acres from the urban RSF2 single-family residential district to the urban B1 neighborhood district receive a favorable recommendation based upon the findings in the staff report as presented, with the recommendation being certified to the town council for adoption or rejection.
Can I make one change? I know you read -16Z, which is an error in our packet. This is actually 2024-36-Z. Are you okay with that change?
I accept that amendment. Thank you for catching it. I had not read it that carefully.
No problem. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of voting to approve 2024-36-Z, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay.
I appreciate your careful eye.
Okay. All right, thank you. I will note that passed 5-0 for the record.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so next up on the agenda, sorry, let me bring this up. Item number 2024-34-PPA. This is located at 11589 East County Road 200 South. Petitioner is Platinum Properties. Roger, is this you? Jody?
This one's mine.
Okay.
So yes, this is a primary plat amendment. Some of you may remember approving this primary plat a few years ago. It was initially approved for 179 lots back in 2021. This is the site here, County Road 200 South.
And this is
And-
referred to as Union Woodlands for anybody that saw this last time. Just,
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, just for anybody up here that doesn't recognize the
The
petition.
zoning on the property is ag and residential R3. It was zoned this way through the county and then subsequently annexed into the town. So this is the original primary plat, where you can see it had two entrance ways off of 200 and then one stub to the west. This area up here was committed to be dedicated for parkland. The exact acreage to be determined. And this is the revised primary plat. So you can see they've removed one entrance off of County Road 200 South. So they've got a boulevard entrance here, a potential connection to the west here. They've added another connection to the west property here. This is all developable property. And then they have terminated what was the second entrance in a cul-de-sac just south of this proposed parkland. This resulted in the addition of 4 lots, so now we have 183 lots. There's also a waiver request associated with this plat amendment. The subdivision control ordinance requires that driveways be 75 feet away from street intersections. The lots noted in red here do not make that distance measurement, so the waiver is requested to allow that distance to be shorter. So just consider the waiver before you consider the plat amendment as a whole. And that is my last slide, and I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it over to the petitioner.
I'll re-ask my question that we discussed earlier at the pre-meeting, just for the record. I did ask Jody if there were concerns by the fire department for removing that second access point off of 200. Her response was their requirement was to have that entry now be boulevarded, so that in case there was an accident on one side, they could go on the other side of that boulevard to make sure they still had access to the development. So just for commission members' knowledge. It's petitioner. Matt, if you want to come up and speak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Matt Price, here tonight on behalf of Platinum Properties and the Human Woodlands Plat Amendment. Jody did an excellent job of giving you all a summary. Let me hit a couple of highlights for you. The plat was originally approved in 2021, and there was a discussion about a couple of different commitments that were made at that time in relation to the approval of the plat and the subsequent development plan, which occurred a little bit after the plat. The property in question was rezoned originally back in 2006 to the R3, which is where you see the proposed lots. And then that section in the northeast part of the plat remains agricultural. And as Jody mentioned, that is subject to a commitment to be dedicated as a future park. And that's one of the staff comments. That process has been well vetted and discussed, and that commitment is continued to be honored. The original density limit on the land area that you see was at 240 total units. This proposal does change the total lot count, but well below that density limitation. So we went from an original 179 to a total of 183, and that's primarily as a result of providing for 2 stubs to the western property as opposed to 1, and then creating the cul-de-sac that you see up in the northeast corner of the residential area that abuts the future parkland. And one of the things that we did in connection with the plat amendment, maybe the most salient change to the proposal, was to remove that easternmost access drive so that we open up the parkland, I believe reduce any conflict with the airport to the north and their runway project, and achieve the same safety and ease of access in and out of the development, as Mr. Lake mentioned, with a boulevard-style entrance off of County Road 200. With regard to the waiver request, it's a somewhat common waiver request with regard to the prohibition against driveways within 75 feet of an intersection. The primary criteria for evaluating whether such a waiver can be granted is whether the sight lines are maintained at the intersection, and they are in this case, and we've spelled that out in our proposed findings with regard to that waiver request, which was also part of the original plat and development plan that was approved back in 2021 and 22. We're just carrying that waiver request forward with this amendment. Our civil engineer, Josh Krebelar, is available to answer any questions that you may have. He's available online, as I would as well, and we appreciate your consideration tonight. Thank you.
Any questions for the petitioner before we go to public comment? No? Thank you, Matt. If there's anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against, please come to the microphone. Again, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Gary Magoni. I'm at 11134 Glen Avon Way. And Mrs. Dickey put this schematic up here. It's I live in that row of homes right there at the bottom. The lot numbers are backwards on that, but I'm at lot 201. A bunch of us from that street came down to all the meetings when this whole thing was being debated. And it took, what, a year and a half? I'm sure the board members remember that. And it was basically approved. And when it was approved, next to the last meeting, we made or 2 meetings before the last meeting that this project was approved, we made a recommendation that if you understand, the houses they were showing us there are basically 0 lot line. They are much smaller than the houses over in Brookhaven, which our street is part of, that subdivision. They don't mimic the homes at all, either in size, lot size, frankly, value, or in many ways, they're just a smaller home. Very nice, but nothing like that on that part of the in that part of the city. So we made a request at that point that tree line that goes along there, some of it's very sparse, some of it's thicker, whatever, the neighbors all take care of it. These 7 homes here, or 8 homes, are all affected by those cul-de-sacs coming right in on our backyards. And our request was at that time that the tree line not be touched. It's a very nice tree line, and most of the neighbors have cleared it out and own clean into the tree line. The other thing we requested is like, for example, along Holiday Farms along Michigan Road, that there be a plan put together to put pine trees or ornamental trees on the other side of the tree line. And we were sure at that time that or requested at that time that each subdivision wouldn't, would sort of be blocked from one another. That, in the next meeting, after we requested that, that was approved, and there was an agricultural or whatever plan made up of it. And we were just wondering, with the changes here and so on, is that plan still in effect? Now, Mrs. Dickey very nicely helped me the other day look up the plans, and on the far side of it, not behind our street, but on the far side of it, they do have pine trees planned for the whole way along that tree line. But nothing is planned for behind our tree line. And we're the closest up to the new existing homes. So we were just wondering if that promise was going to be held intact, the one that we got from the last folks that own this.
So what I'd like to do, if I can, is I'm going to take that question down, and Matt will take that down as well. When all the public questions and comments are in, we'll have him come back up and answer that, okay?
Yes. Okay. The other thing we ask is that the houses on those cul-de-sacs that are right in close to the homes, and most of them are right in there, thank you, that the cosmetics on the back of those homes would be a little bit different than the basic boxes that they were showing us in the original plans. Now, I don't know if your company is planning on putting up a different home, or I don't know about that, but we made those requests so that, frankly, the values of our homes wouldn't drop. So I appreciate your time, Mrs. Dickey. Thank you for helping me out.
Thank you, and we'll address those here in a minute. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against? Name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Ian Ferris, Ferries. I live at 11130 Glen Avon Way, actually right next door to Gary. And personally, I have an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old both in the schools, and adding homes at this price point in this location will undoubtedly affect the populations and the flow through the schools. And I'm curious to know if there's been any coordination with the school district on how this will affect class sizes, expectation of number of classes, et cetera, both at Union and at Zionsville Middle, because presumably this will be a neighborhood that is targeting families of school-age children. And so have a concern for that. Professionally, I work as one of the trauma surgeons at Ascension St. Vincent, and living on just off of 300, spending some time going up on 200, I do have concerns adding somewhere, ballpark the number between 250 and 300 automobiles into the traffic flow of that part of town, and how well that's going to maintain a safe driving environment for the people there on Michigan 300, 200, with both school district traffic patterns there and some of the rural traffic patterns. I've got significant concerns for the volume, increased volume of traffic that has outwardly not been accounted for with new development of 300 or 200. And I think for the most part, those are my big ones. Right, third one, sorry. Would also be how the city of Zionsville has prepared for increased wastewater management and storm runoff. As I know, in some of the newer developments, there have already been issues on that side of town with flooding of basements, backing up of sewage, with the existing developments that have already been finished. So I think those would be my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against? No? Okay. Mr. Price, would you like to address those questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to address the questions. First, I want to say that this is at the plat stage, so the petition meets the requirements for plat approval, but that's not being dismissive of all of the concerns, because there is an appropriate phase of this review where we can take back up these issues, and that's with regard to the development plan, which we have filed, and that'll be heard hopefully next month. But to provide some additional comfort, we are not changing the buffer yards that were approved in connection with the development plan back in 2021, so that should remain the same. I will also say this, that I'd be happy to sit down individually and talk with you about your concerns with regard to that. Also, picking up on Mr. Ferris's comments, this is, just to give you an idea to visualize as a Zionsville resident, this is the same zoning that what you see in Chelsea Park off of Templin Road. It's the same zoning as the senior housing development north of St. Alphonsus Church. So it's very high quality housing, and it's held to all the same development standards as any other single family development in Zionsville. So for example, we will have an approved drainage plan that requires all the water on this site to be detained on this property, only released in a measured fashion into an approved outlet, just like with any other single-family development. And so it will improve existing conditions that may prevail in parts of Zionsville where there is not an existing drainage system. The property, again, is zoned. It's been zoned back in 2006. So I do not know if there was coordination with the school corporation at that time. There was certainly a limitation put on the number of units in exchange for a very material dedication of parkland. That is what you see to the northeast, and the project is well below the density threshold that was originally proposed. And then lastly, I think there was an issue about sanitary sewer, and the sanitary sewer provider is not the town of Zionsville. It's through Trico, and so that's been studied very carefully and was a matter that was vetted quite extensively during the original plat and development plan.
Mr. Price, the other item was traffic on 200 South.
Yeah, and we have provided, as we're required, we've provided a traffic study that prescribes the improvements at our entrance along County Road 200. And as you can see, we've also anticipated if there is to be future development to the west, we've built in those stubs to help diffuse traffic circulation throughout the area.
Okay. Thank you very much. Questions, comments from the commission?
I have a question. Just the 4 additional units, are they placed in this lower, I guess, southwest quadrant of the?
Yeah, so they are not, if you notice the cul-de-sac kind of in the southwest, that remains basically the same as before. But because if you go to the north and west of that, by providing that additional stub to the west, there's been some overall number of units there because of that design orientation has changed. The goal really, though, that is an outcome of this amendment, but it wasn't really the goal of it. The goal of it was to remove the second access drive, if you will, off of County Road 200, eliminate any conflict with the airport, and open up that area for the park usage.
in the airport study, I mean, you clearly made the airport happy because they're not here tonight. But the adjoining property to this, is that in that tier 1 zoning where,
I think this is technically in the tier 1.
yes, this
zoning.
is in tier 1, but we didn't have
Yeah.
tier 1 in 2006, so.
Right.
Yes, correct. This
Yeah.
was zoned this way prior to being adopted into Zionsville, and so it's a legacy zoning, if you will.
But I guess my question is where you're putting these stubs in for future development, but there may not be future development because that's in the tier 1 zoning. And we are discouraged from having development in that area.
Certainly, yeah. And that would be up to the town to permit any future development there or not in connection with, just like on any other project. What it does do, though, is say, one, it doesn't have to be, the tier 1 just prohibits residential development. So what it does do, though, is plan for future traffic circulation in a responsible way. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with those stubs to the west. It doesn't presuppose any particular land use.
And at one time, wasn't there some retention ponds out here on the front, dry retention ponds out in this area that's now called park?
I believe there was maybe way back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been a
yeah,
while.
it's been worked over thoroughly. One of the items that, I'm glad you mentioned that, one of the items that was discussed at that time and we've maintained is the use of dry detention, which was part of the original approval, and that's being carried forward.
So I've got the comprehensive plan pulled up. Most of that area west appears to not be in the tier 1.
So it could,
Maybe this little chunk that's kind of missing there in the kind of
Right.
northwest corner, but
yeah, I
yeah,
guess we are getting a little bit west of the
yeah.
airport.
It's
there.
hard to tell, that map's not super granular and the lines are really fat,
But
but
just a concern.
yeah. Other questions, comments?
Just a point of clarification, the public comments we received, if I'm reading the site plan correctly, this would be abutting the backyards of those properties?
Yeah, backyard to backyard.
And you will get another look at this as a plan commission. So when you get to see the development plan, we'll have the landscaping treatments and our buffer package at that time, and will give us an opportunity to sit down with the neighbor as well, as we did originally, or as the prior petitioner did.
And I'll remind commission, we need a vote on the waiver first. That is for the distance of driveways from the intersections. One way or the other, we need to vote on that first, and then second would be the overall petition. So if anybody is so inclined to make a motion, now's your chance.
I'll take this one. I move that the proposed subdivision waiver to allow driveways to be closer than 75 feet to the street intersection be approved.
Can we get a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the waiver, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Waiver passes 5-0. And then the petition itself.
I move that docket 2024-34-PPA, approval of a primary plat amendment for a residential subdivision dividing 160.92 acres into 183 lots subdivision in a rural single and two-family residential R3 and agricultural AG District B, conditionally approved based on findings in the staff report, staff recommendations, and submitted findings of facts as presented with resolution of staff comments.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving docket number 2024-34-PPA, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have docket number 2024-30-DPA. This is for Cafe Patachou patio enclosure at 95 East Pine Street, a development plan amendment for the addition of side panels for a patio enclosure being in the Village Business District VBD. If we could
I'll be
get-
presenting that one, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Cafe Patachou Restaurant is seeking a development plan amendment to add side panels and wall-mounted heaters to their existing restaurant at 95 East Pine Street in the Village area. This project's been reviewed by your TAC, Technical Advisory Committee. We did not identify any concerns with regard to this project. It is an existing patio area that's just not enclosed. It was discovered after the panels were installed that these additional panels would warrant Plan Commission review of a development plan amendment.
And it's covered today. It
currently
just doesn't
covered.
have sides on it.
The proposal is for sides, though the sides are already installed.
Yeah,
Yes,
yes. As it was approved previously, it did not have
Right.
sides on it.
that's
Yeah.
correct.
Thank you for clarifying
And
that.
you're welcome. And Roger's showing you some of the elevations for the building on the screen. The color and materials, we believe, are consistent with the building and consistent with the downtown theme for the village area. So staff is in support of this amendment to the development plan.
Okay. Petitioner present.
Yes, I'm online.
Okay. Any comments for the commission?
I think there were a couple comments that came up during the TAC meeting. I just will address those again. The panels there's basically a housing at the top of the opening that the panel can raise and lower. It just basically rolls up into the housing when it's opened. And then egress is not affected. We're adding a door on the south side of the patio enclosure so that patrons can exit directly from the patio and won't have to go through the restaurant. So we are not affecting the current egress for the restaurant itself. The door that connects the patio and the restaurant is not a required exit. So patrons will not be
Perhaps the
exiting.
petitioner could identify themselves.
I was going to have him do that when he was done.
Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, could you give us your
my
name
name-
and address, please?
Yes, Kevin Coppage with Studio 3 Design, 10748 Sky Prairie Street, Fishers, Indiana, 46038.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Anything else for us?
No, I think that was it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against this petition? Okay, hearing none. Commission members, any thoughts, comments? Thanks for the catch on that. I kind of caught that too. We're just going to let him finish and get his
Well,
name and
having
address.
eaten on that patio, it's a lovely place to be.
Is there any ventilation for this area? I know you're putting sides on it, but when you put those sides on, you create a little condensation inside. Is there any sort of ventilation, like out of the top of this? The only thing I'm concerned about is mold or something from.
Yeah, currently, no, there's no ventilation. I mean, we are adding infrared heaters in there. It doesn't necessarily help with condensation, but we can look into that
So
if that's a concern.
I would tell you it's considered an outdoor space, so even with the sides on it, so while the code makes you treat it as an interior for egress, it doesn't have ventilation requirements typically tied to it. And, you know, these exist all over the area. And
Yeah, I've just,
Yeah.
I've noticed that you can get some black mold on those vinyl panels.
when they're north facing, it tends to be more of an issue. Yeah, so,
Just an observation, not something.
No,
I'm
that's a
totally
good
worried
point,
about.
yeah.
yeah. Any other comments? No? Okay, can we get a motion then?
I move that docket number 2024-30-DPA, development plan amendment to add side panels and wall-mounted heaters to an outdoor patio area at 95 East Pine Street, be approved based on the findings of fact in the staff report and staff recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving docket number 2024-30-DPA, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you for your submission.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next up is docket number 2024-31-DPA, Holiday Farms Clubhouse Outdoor Amenities and Parking Lot, located at 3950 Club Ridge Estates. This is a development plan amendment for the relocation of outdoor amenities, fencing and lighting being in the planned unit development Holiday Farms PUD district. Roger?
Thank you. As mentioned, the petition under consideration is a development plan amendment for the relocation of outdoor amenities, specifically tennis and pickleball courts, and their related fencing and lighting. The petitioner received development plan approval from the Plan Commission for the clubhouse and the same outdoor amenities under docket number 2021-45DP. However, the layout and the number of outdoor courts and their related lighting and fencing has changed since that approval, and the development plan amendment petition is for the approval of the new layout and the number of outdoor courts. Specifically, the original development plan approval included 6 tennis courts. What is proposed now is 5. The original DP approval included 5 pickleball courts, and this DP amendment requests 11. The revised layout of the courts, and let me back up, walk through some slides real quick, apologize for that. As a matter of orientation, here's Michigan Road that runs along the eastern side of Holiday Farms, and this is the main entry into the development, coming back to the clubhouse lot in this area. I should note, I picked up this afternoon as I was preparing for this, I did not correctly show this northern property line of the site. It should actually come down and does not include this one very small parcel immediately to the north. This is the zoning map which shows the area zoned as a PUD. And this is the exhibit of the original site layout, which again was approved back in 2021, showing the pickleball courts and 2 tennis courts abutting the nearest residential lot immediately to the north. Should point out that this lot is, well, before I get to that, let me go to the proposal because it's more pertinent here. This is the proposed layout, which shows nothing but pickleball courts now along this northern line, with the tennis courts moved down to the southern side. This one lot is not under development at this time, but the adjacent lots to it are being developed with residential homes. So there is this one thin lot of buffer between the homes under construction and this proposed area. The proposed area has been cleared and initial grading and some installation of light bases has been placed, but it is still an area under construction. And this is a proposed photometric of the area for the pickleball courts and the tennis courts. The revised layout of the courts results in 6 of the pickleball courts being adjacent to the neighboring lot. The original DP had 3 pickleball courts and 2 tennis courts adjacent to that neighboring lot. The only topic of interest at this time regards lighting. Photometric plan was provided for this new layout, but the light levels did not extend the measurement of the light levels to the subject's property lines. A revised photometric plan has been requested, but has not yet been received by staff for review. Petitioner did note that they are working on that, did not feel it would be fair for us to receive it at such a late date prior to this meeting. So with that, staff supports a conditional approval of the development plan amendment, subject to the submittal of the photometric plan, which depicts light levels not exceeding 0.5 foot candles at the property lines. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
It looks like the area being touched is roughly exactly the same. It just happens that the drawings are at 2 different scales, which makes it look much bigger?
You are correct, that the perimeter of the area is not changing.
Okay.
But the configuration of the items within that perimeter are
Thank you.
moving around.
Roger, I have a question. The ingress and egress to the pickleball and tennis court area is my understanding, just from having been there, and hopefully you can confirm this for me, is there's a gate that's by the diving well. I think that looks like it's going to lead out to right where this proposed tennis pickleball house is located. Is that your understanding how people are actually going to walk out there through the pool area, or is it going to have a separate gated
So,
entrance?
When I zoom in on the map, it looks like there's a 5-foot walk that does connect from there to the, what is actually the enclosure by there's like a, I don't know what that is, a play area or some sort of enclosure next to the pickleball courts, and you can also access it from the sidewalk that goes along the front of the amenity facility. So there's multiple connection points, it looks like.
We can also get some clarification from the petitioner's representative.
It looks like if you're coming from the parking lot, there's a gate indicated. There's also a gate indicated, or a gate indicated coming from the diving well when you zoom in. Any other questions for staff before we have the petitioner speak? Is the petitioner present? Mr. Price, could you please give us your presentation?
For the record, my name is Matt Price, here on behalf of Hinkie Development Group. Mr. Kilmer did a great job of summarizing our request. When Hinkie went to develop this amenity area with changes to the tennis court and pickleball counts within the same footprint, we spoke with Mr. Kilmer about it, and he advised that rather than treating it as a minor amendment, given the fact that pickleball is sometimes associated with noise, that it would be just safer to go through the full-blown hearing process rather than more of a truncated administrative process, and we were certainly agreeable to doing that. I think the fundamental change to the proposal is that by our count, we had 6 tennis courts and 8 pickleball courts, and we're reducing the tennis court count by 1 and raising the pickleball court count by 3. So we would end up with 5 tennis courts and 11 total pickleball courts, all within that same footprint. And there are a couple of different ways to access the property by foot, including accessing it from the parking lot adjacent to the clubhouse, where there's a gate entry and a sidewalk that leads back to the court area, which you can see kind of in the southwest corner of the property. And then I believe Mr. Lake is correct in saying that there also appears to be an additional access point from the diving well area as well, with an internal kind of walking area. That area that you see immediately adjacent to the diving well area is restroom facilities, and I believe there's a walkway that kind of runs between the tennis courts and the proposed pickleball courts to the northeast. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Is there any questions for the petitioner?
Yeah, is the proposed change have to do with the popularity, pickleball being the latest craze sweeping the nation?
It is, and yeah, I think it's a adaptation to where there is a great deal of community demand. I can tell you, Mulberry Fields Sunday morning, as I was heading out, I was told by my across-the-street neighbor that there was people lined up down the sidewalk outside of Mulberry Fields to play pickleball on Sunday morning. So it's a very popular activity, and this is really responding to that.
As a tennis player, I feel slighted. I want to say that for the record, but
You're still valued very much.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Thank you, Mr. Price. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against the petition? Okay, seeing none. Any comments, discussion amongst the commission members?
I would point out, I think the neighboring residential lot that's behind this area is still owned by the developer. It's still for sale for the public, but it looks like it's going to be a close abutment anyhow for whoever the future property owner is.
Okay,
And it always was.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
always was close.
Is pickleball ball noisy? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah. It's
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I'm kind of.
Imagine a ping pong paddle without the rubber on it, so you get that ding of the ball every time it hits the paddle, or smack of the ball, I guess.
Okay. The tennis ball is much nicer sound.
That's true.
All right, if there's no other discussion, can we get a motion, please?
Sure. I move that docket number 2024-31 DPA, a development plan amendment for the relocation of outdoor amenities, fencing and lighting related to the Holiday Farms Clubhouse in the Holiday Farms PUD, District B, conditionally approved based on the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, submitted findings of fact, and subject to the submittal of a photometric plan which depicts light levels not exceeding 0.5 foot candles at the property lines.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of petition number 2024-31-DPA, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. All right, now I have a request. Mr. Fedor, would you be willing to run this petition on my behalf? Delve Design is the architect for this project, and so I will be recusing myself as I've done in the past. So we still have 4 commission members here. You can use my computer if you are so
No,
inclined.
I got my paper copies.
Okay.
Old school. Do I even need to come down and do it?
No,
Yeah,
you
I
just-
do.
Your choice.
I want to be close by you if I screw up. I'm here for you.
Yes.
All right. This would be petition number 2024-33-DP. The farm commercial buildings 3 through 9. Development plan petition for approval of multiple commercial buildings on outlots within the farm PUD. Who's got this one?
It's mine. Yep. Could I have Roger's screen promoted, please? Thanks. Thanks. Just a brief introduction. We are here for the farm, the commercial component of the farm PUD. Here are the approximate boundaries of the site, Sycamore and Michigan Road, and the zoning is PUD. The proposed development plan is for 5 commercial buildings and some building pads. You can see them laid out here. Again, here's Sycamore, Michigan Road. The 5 multi-tenant buildings and the building pads are here along Sycamore. I do want to highlight the difference in the original PUD. The original PUD was approved a number of years ago, and the concept plan at the time showed a water feature here, a fairly prominent entry, and some varied setbacks on the proposed commercial buildings. The current concept plan shows it's still a prominent feature. There's no water feature here. It's all landscaping at this corner. And the buildings are slightly more regimented. These are all multi-tenant retail structures. And there are crosswalks to get, let me scooch back here again, crosswalks to get folks from the parking areas, which are in the front and along the roadways here, to the main spine road, entrance off of Sycamore and onto 421. Again, the original concept plan showed a full access road and a right-in, right-out on Sycamore, along with the full access road and a right-in, right-out on Michigan Road. The right-in, right-outs were taken away by NDOT, so there are only the main access drives, one on each road. So you can see those denoted here. The landscape plan, the landscape plan, I was just trying to see if you could actually see that. It's a little better in your packet, hopefully. But the landscape plan does comply. It shows the buffers that are required, the building, the foundation plantings that are required, the streets, and the parking lot perimeter plantings that are all required. Elevations. There's just a couple of the buildings here, but just a representation of what you can see for the colors and the materials that are proposed for the buildings. And then staff had one comment early on in the design process that we were concerned because some of the buildings, the PUD says that the rear facades won't be facing Sycamore or Michigan Road. And obviously there's no other way to site them other than here's Michigan Road, Sycamore, and here's the internal circulation road. So these, what would normally be noted as rear facades or secondary facades, are according to the PUD to look the same as primary facades. So they should be as dressed up. Staff would just note that some of the buildings you can clearly see mechanical equipment from the rear facade, and that's not something you would typically see. Another item, I keep going the wrong way. Nope, and I keep going the wrong way. Sorry. The other thing that staff would note is there are a couple of proposed drive-throughs on the buildings. They're accessed by coming along and then making a left turn into the drive aisle and then out. So there was some concern on staff's part that there may be some traffic conflicts. Now it's only on an internal road, so it might not make any difference. But there is just that awkward left-hand turn into a driveway. The biggest issue from staff's concern is this point right here, buildings 5 and 6. The PUD specifies a building separation of 20 feet. At this point, these two buildings are like 3.5 feet apart. The petitioner's response to that concern was that when they get to the building permit stage, they would submit that as though it were one building. So staff confirmed with both fire and building that that is a thing that can happen. We can take two buildings, consider them to be one building for building safety and fire code purposes. However, that doesn't alleviate the zoning standard of 20-foot building separation. So that is an item of concern from staff, whether or not they should receive a variance from this or just make it be one building. The most recent comment letter from the engineer does have a few minor cleanup items, so we are having a conditional recommendation for approval on this. And with that, I will be happy to answer questions or turn it over to the petitioner.
Any questions for staff? All right, on to the petitioner.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Steve Pittman. I'm here representing Pittman Investors, the owner of this property, and Pittman Partners, the development entity, for the development plan approval for Phase 2. And Jody, thank you for the presentation you did. And I'm going to, I could almost stop with what she's done, but I'm going to go back and kind of walk you guys through the PUD a little bit, just because this was approved 11 years ago and you guys have had the benefit of knowing where we've been and where we are today. Part of our, oh, can I get this screen on? No. Thank you. I want to introduce our development team. So Pittman Partners is the developer, Pittman Investors is the owner. The owners of Pittman Investors, myself and my one older brother, one younger brother. Many of you might know Chad Pittman. Chad lives here in Zionsville, and he's been overseas in a military assignment for approximately a year, and wanted to make sure that whoever was here that he said hello, and looks forward to getting back here. Also part of our team is Delve Design. Delve is the architect, and we hired Delve not only because they're a great architectural firm, but they also did phase 1 of our development, which is 400 apartments. So we felt it was very critical to have that continuity from the retail and the multifamily. American Structure Point is our civil engineer. Context Design is our landscape architecture firm. And of course, our last partner, probably our most important partner, is the town of Zionsville. Sam, I might need an assist here. Just put this page up here just to show the original plan was approved in July of 2013, so we're getting close to 11 years. To go back to our original plan, this is of our PUD, this is the use block plan. And when looking at this plan, I'm going to go from west to east. So on the far west is the residential estate section. That's 15 acres, and the commitment there is there could be no more than 6 lots. The next block, I'm using the yellow block, and that's the professional office use block fronting Sycamore Street. And then we have the big area in the interior, that's called the village core use block. And then the block that we're going to be discussing tonight, a portion of that block is the Michigan Road use block. After we sold the residential estate block, we had a total of 48 acres. There's 8 acres in the floodplain, so we had 40 usable acres. Phase 1 is 400 apartments. The apartments, the detention area, and the road work for phase 1 took up 17 acres, so we have 23 acres left. And one of the reasons why I want to go through this with you is because we'll be coming back for, I'm going to call this phase 2A retail. We'll have phase 2B, phase 2C. So tonight we're going to be discussing the first approximately 40,000 feet. To also review and go back over the concept plan that Jody showed you before, I think it's interesting to look at a concept plan because all it is a concept plan. It's 2013. We're taking the best guess of what this may look like. And we probably had 50, 60 plans of which one do we include in our PUD. And I think you're going to be, at least I am, surprised of how closely, when you look at this plan, to how the plan is coming out. So, as Jody mentioned again, some things have changed. NDOT took away our right in and right out on Sycamore and Michigan. We're also going to be putting a traffic light on Michigan Road. It'll be a full left-hand turn lane. So this is still the concept plan that we're showing, but I'm showing you in the first phase of what was developed. So we had the whole ring road from Sycamore Street all the way down and connecting into Michigan Road. And that first phase of 400 apartments and detention, that was all in that phase, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the phase 1 actual. So you'll see that ring road again. You'll see the residential buildings there. There's 400 apartments there. And within those apartments, there's a 4-story parking garage. I think there's maybe 400 parking stalls. It's my understanding that's the first structured parking facility built in Boone County, built in Zionsville. And that project will be, I don't want to sound arrogant or cocky or anything, but it'll be as nice or nicer than anything you see in Central Indiana. It'll be very high rents. It'll be very nice. And part of making those really nice is that we make our retail nice and they complement each other. Now the phase 2 concept, and that's the area we're going to be talking about tonight. We've highlighted that in blue. And so we're going from the entryway on Sycamore and not quite all the way down to the entryway on Michigan Road. So that's the area that we're going to be talking about tonight. So the area that I just outlined for you in blue, this is what that looks like of what we're actually proposing. So the reason why we have two different colors there is the color that's, I guess, orange on the northwest side. That's part of this proposal where those two buildings are. We've crossed those buildings out because all we're doing on this phase in that particular area is getting, we're going to be putting in all the development. We're going to be grading it, sewer, water, parking, getting that ready for a building pad. And then the area in blue, that's going to be site work and the vertical construction of about just under 40,000 feet. So now to talk a little bit about that area. And once again, those first two buildings on the northwest, those are not going in at this time. The buildings, so those would be buildings 3 and 4 that are not going in. The rest of the buildings are 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And so one thing to comment, what Jody brought up on those two buildings, because we don't have that setback, we are planning on connecting those as one building. And so when we go in for that permit, that won't be an issue. Some of the things that, and we've been working for several months with your planning staff, and they really, we're going to come in earlier, and after meeting with them, we didn't really think we were ready. They really were encouraging us to kind of, what I'm going to call supercharge this development and have better exhibits and, talk about what's making this area so special. So we're going to have a 12-foot multi-purpose path down Michigan Road and down Sycamore, which we've actually never built paths that wide before. The widest we've ever done is 10. The requirements here were 12. So you could take a car down that, but it'll be able to accommodate a lot of people. We also have connections coming in at our entryway in Sycamore, also down at Michigan, and then we're also highlighting at the intersection of 421 and 334, we have those crosswalks up on 421 and 334, and then anyone who happens to be out there will be able to come in right at that intersection. We're going to have a really beautiful sign, landscaping, and there's, besides losing those right in, right out, we have significant amount of grade change. So while I think it's challenging, I think it's going to make for a better development because we'll have over 500 feet of retaining wall along Sycamore that will be as tall as 7 feet. So you'll only be able to see like really the upper part of our building, and then along Michigan we'll have about 354 linear feet of retaining walls that will go, I think the highest point up to 5 feet. So it'll do it, and then we're going to have landscaping, fencing, all the things that go with that. So we'll do a good job of hiding. Well, our trash enclosures are all enclosed with masonry per our plans, but all of the mechanicals and electricals, we'll do a nice job with that. You can see we have a significant amount of walking path that's going in. The significance to me of that entryway coming in where we have that kind of green space and that trail connection, it'll be our goal as we continue this development in future phases and cross over that interior core and then get to the multifamily, that we have that pedestrian connectivity that brings the multifamily and the retail together. This is just showing you an example of where those retaining walls are going to go. The upper slide is Sycamore. That's a little over 500 feet, and then a little over 350 on the lower building. Okay, once again, to show you this entire project, again, so we put it in context of the entire project. You can see the 12-foot multi-purpose paths on Michigan Road. You can see our internal pathway in blue, which the majority of that blue will be this section, and then that interior area, and I want to be really careful when I discuss that area and make sure everybody's aware, because there's so many rumors that percolate around here, and I get calls about that rumor is we're going to be putting in a Walmart, we're going to be putting in a Meijer, we're going to be, that central area is still a concept, and we don't have a grocery store. We are talking to several boutique specialty grocers. We hope to be able to make an announcement at some point. But so this conversation tonight is not about that central area, so I hope everybody that's listening understands that. This is an aerial photograph that was taken this month to give you an idea of what's happening on that site. So you see the multifamily there. You can see the very top, you can see the parking garage that everybody was so concerned about when that was going up, and you can see we're wrapping that with residential. We'll have a really nice courtyard, and I happen to agree with Mr. Plopper. I'm embarrassed to admit that we're putting a pickleball court in that courtyard because I'm a tennis player too. And, but we're going to do that. And, but I think this aerial photograph is a pretty neat thing to look at, because if you look to the south of us, you have those two neighborhoods. You have Woodhaven and, forget the name of the other one, but you see those treat areas. And then south of it, I look at that area as kind of business as usual. It's, you know, retail strip centers, big parking spaces, you know, residential multifamily things behind it. And I don't think they're, you know, not to be critical of anyone else's development, it's well done, but it's the way, to me, development used to be done. And you don't have the connectivity from building to multifamily and that walkability that we're trying to pull off here. And I also think you know, that when you go past those two neighborhoods, as you go even with them, you're like, hey, we're hitting a new area here. Now we're going to Zionsville. This is different. And so we've felt that it was incumbent upon us to really do a nice job in trying to do that right. So we're excited about this. We're putting a lot of time and effort and thought into it, and we hope when it starts coming to fruition that, you know, people will like it. We know there'll always be the critics, but we think it should be pretty spectacular. I'm going to turn this part of the presentation over to Sam Vonderow of Delft Design and let him kind of talk about our building materials, the architecture, and kind of how we're tying it in with the multifamily. Sam?
Good evening. Sam Vonderow, 1411 Roosevelt Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm going to talk for just a few moments about the architectural character and quality of the buildings that we're proposing. So what you see in front of you and on the screens is a sample material palette that we're proposing to be used for the exterior of the buildings, highlighting these as Midwestern contemporary, as is required in the PUD. So these are grounded in warm tones of masonry, the stone and the brown and buff bricks that you see on the left of the screen, and then complemented with different styles of siding, whether that be clapboard or metal siding that you see on the bottom, and also adding in warmth and kind of the human tactile quality of natural wood, which is the soffit material that's connecting all of the canopies and patios throughout, and then also composite wood siding that will be used as an accent material. Also to note that most of these materials that you see that are proposed on the retail buildings that we're talking about tonight are also part of the multifamily component that's already under construction. So the intent is that we create a cohesive district that looks and feels as one. So next up are a few aerial images. So this is kind of a bird's eye view showing the character and quality of the space, as if, you know, you're floating 30 or 40 feet above the intersection. So a little bit of an exaggerated view, but to give you a sense of the space that we're trying to create in between the buildings, tied together with a lot of lush green space. The main goal here, as Steve was alluding to, is to create a rich pedestrian experience. So the buildings are inward facing, so that once you arrive at this destination, all of the patios for the restaurants and the businesses are connected with canopies, so that once you're in the space, it can be a safe and vibrant place to walk about. And a view inward facing out, showing the scale and quality of material compositions. Again, focused on creating a rich pedestrian environment, using a handsome balance of materials, focusing on the natural Midwestern contemporary use of stone and brick, adding in the warmth of wood, all of those canopies that you see, providing cover for entries and shading, but also the undersides of those are natural wood soffit. So a good balance of natural and durable materials. And also bringing back up the section that Jody shared earlier, just illustrating the grade change challenges that we've had on the site, which is one of the main reasons why we've turned the buildings to be inward facing. in that having them face the road with this grade change, it just creates quite a challenge with access and would force the buildings to be pushed way internal to the site, which is counter to creating the pedestrian walkable site that I think that we're all hopeful to create. And also, this is important to illustrate the sight lines for mechanical units and utilities that would be facing the roads. There are 2 layers of green buffer plantings between the automobile and the face of building. And on each building, we have 3 to 4 feet of parapet height, which would cover mechanical units. So with that, I will turn it back to Steve and the rest of our development team. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation. We'll look forward to answering any questions you have.
Great. We'll hold our question for the petitioner after we let anybody from the public who has any concerns, please step up.
Leah Wilson, 6345 Mayfield. So I live in the beautiful community that your family developed right behind you. And 3 of our pieces of land are affected by that creek directly. So I don't have any real concerns other than to show up and do my due diligence to make sure that we're keeping in mind the drainage, that there are plans, that there are multiple engineers looking at the potential for erosion of those 3 pieces of land. Ours and then our 2 neighbors are directly impacted. When that water flow fluctuates, we already experience erosion of the ravine there. So just wanted to know what assurances there are of the drainage being completely taken care of by the accommodations on your farm. All right. It looks beautiful. We're excited to see it come to life.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Steve, do you want to go ahead and respond to the
Sure. Yeah, thank you for your comments. And we did develop your neighborhood, and I appreciate the compliments of that neighborhood. And we've worked closely with your neighborhood, and we'll continue to do so. We hired American Structure Point. Not only did we hire them for this phase, but also our multifamily phase hired them. And so they've done all the engineering work to make sure that we are containing all the water properly on our property. We have what are called BMPs or aqua swirls that will grab any sediment and hold it and release water without the sediment that we're required to maintain and take care of. So we'll be meeting all the requirements we're required to make. In addition to that, if there are problems and things that are overlooked, certainly continue to communicate with you all to make sure that we're being sensitive to your needs. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the petitioner from the commission members?
Yeah, I have a question. With regard to the separation between the 2 buildings, that the PUD calls for 20-foot separation. I think you're proposing the order of 3 or 6. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I think it was 8.
8, okay,
Yeah.
thank you, 8 feet. And then you mentioned in your presentation that it won't be an issue because you intend to connect the 2 buildings.
Correct.
Can you elaborate a little bit further how they'd be connected?
Well, we'll probably have something that connects the 2 buildings and has a roof on it. So it's considered one building. In fact, you might be able to address that better than I can of what's required from an architectural standpoint.
Sure, and Mike, we'd be happy to work through the semantics with you on this because it is a bit of a gray area, which is why we're here, because the project was designed per building code, and what the best intent for the project was for its location on the site. So our 2 options to this point would be to connect the building. That is not necessarily defined by any document, so we'll have to work with staff to define what that is, if there's a certain square footage, linear footage of wall. But the intent would be a usable space to connect both buildings with a roof or parapet overhead. The alternate option would be to leave the designs as is and go before the Board of Zoning Appeals for variances.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I had some concerns about the mechanicals facing Michigan Road and 334. How are these, there's going to be plantings, and what type of mechanicals are we talking? Is this air conditioning units, or are they gas meters? What am I going to be seeing along the?
Sure. On the elevations of the buildings will be electrical meters and gas meters. And we can bring up a planting plan. We might need to go back to Jody's presentation to show. But there's a really healthy buffers of plantings at 2 zones of the periphery that once those plantings are mature, they will be dense enough to screen those meters. Anything that's HVAC related would be up on the roof. And as I said, there's 3 to 4 foot parapets throughout.
And on the plantings that are going to be hiding these utility or these mechanicals, you said when they're mature, are we putting something in this tall and 10 years from now it's going to be mature, or are we talking it's going to be mature, or we're already putting established plantings in is what I'm asking, I guess.
Sure. I don't have off the top of my head the caliper of plantings that are proposed to be installed, but if we can zoom in, if possible, on the planting plan just to show the density. And this is something that we'd be happy to follow up with you on the actual caliper of trees. It's well above what an ordinance or typical ordinance and the PUD would require.
So, you know, our landscape architect, one of his concerns was he was actually challenged to fit all the landscaping in our PUD, how we wrote it, the space, I mean, we're really packing it in. In addition to it, if you look at that, you know, outside of the road right away, you got the landscaping, then you have another green area behind the building as well. So we have an additional opportunity to screen that. And the things he's talking about are like the meters like this. It's not the big HVC equipment, if that's what you might be thinking.
I'll use an example of Pearson Tennis Center out here. If you go down the road, you've got those large HVAC units that are barely screened. The plantings have kind of died back, and you can see them from the road. Right. That slipped through several years ago, and I'm pretty cognizant of it ever since. So, any other questions for the petitioner? Comments among staff, or, commissioners? If not, do I have a motion?
It's a long one. I move that docket number 2024-33-DP development plan for 5 commercial buildings, 2 building pads and site amenities in the Michigan Road frontage use block of the Farm PUD be conditionally approved based on 1, the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, 2, submitted findings of fact, 3, final sign plan submitted for staff review and approval, 4, the petitioner revises plans to meet the required building separation for buildings 5 and 6 or obtain a development standards variance, and 5, subject to resolution of outstanding review items identified by the comment letter in Exhibit 6, and any noted during the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask for clarification? On Mr. Plopper's proposal, he's talked about the 2 buildings either that we get a variance or we separate them, isn't the third opportunity would be to make it one building, right? Aren't there 3 options? Did you include that in your,
Not on there.
I don't think you did.
Yeah.
It looks like it's an either or, but I think staff should address that
Okay.
for clarification.
Yeah, the staff recommendation was to somehow either meet the PUD of 20 feet building separation, connect those buildings somehow, or get a variance from the
Okay.
BZA.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, we're. Clarification. Oh, clarifying. Yes, yeah, motion passes 4 to 0. And someone go get Chris back in here. And we'll let him move on to the next
Was there a
thing.
nay vote?
I'll be better next month.
Oh, there's only 4 people.
Yeah, there's just 4 of us.
Okay. Gotcha, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
You did great.
You want your paper copy back?
Yeah, thank you. Yep. Got that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me wake my computer back up.
Thank you, Ms. Metric.
Okay. So next up are the 2 agenda items that we moved to the end of this evening's docket. The first is docket number 2024-39-OA, Town of Zionsville zoning jurisdiction. I can't speak. It's an ordinance amendment to the Town of Zionsville zoning ordinance sections 194.202, Board of Zoning Appeals, and 194.024 definitions. Petition proposes to replace unnecessary hardship for practical difficulty and define such terms. Is
I'll
this you,
be
Mr.
presenting that.
Dale?
Yes, thank you very much. Right, there are 2 amendments that we are proposing to change the zoning code in terms of the findings for a development standards variance. Currently, the decision criteria for development standards variance includes 3 particular findings or 3 separate sets of findings for development standards variance. One, that the approval or that the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Second, that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. And thirdly, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in it's unnecessary hardship, currently states unnecessary hardship in the use of the property. Staff is recommending that we amend the zoning code to replace unnecessary hardship with practical difficulty. We have talked about this particular proposal with both the Plan Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals over the last several months. It's the belief of understanding from the boards and staff that the criteria relating to unnecessary hardship is a really high hurdle for most property owners, and it's also a difficult finding to make in most cases for development standards variances. The Indiana code, as mentioned in the cover letter, does give a board the option of using either practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship amongst the findings for a development standards variance. The town of Zionsville has chosen the more difficult standard of unnecessary hardship. Most jurisdictions are in our understanding use practical difficulty instead of unnecessary hardship in among the 3 findings for a development standards variance. So what we're proposing here, and we've advertised for hearing, is an amendment to the zoning code and seeking a Plan Commission recommendation to the town council that would amend the zoning code to change the 3rd finding from unnecessary hardship to practical difficulty. And within this ordinance, we define practical difficulty and unnecessary hardship, which is the 2nd amendment to the zoning code. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Dale from staff? or from commission, sorry?
No, sir.
No? Any comments from the public, for or against? All right. I think, Mr. Dale mentioned that this is the more common practice amongst commissions to have practical difficulty. We are allowed to upgrade that if we so choose, and at some point, somebody so chose. Not that that maybe is in necessarily the best interest all the time. I think that staff struggles a lot with seeing a need for a change and recognizing that need, but then maybe not being able to apply it the way that is best for Zionsville because of the unnecessary hardship clause. So I'm in favor of the change to practical difficulty. And I think adding the definitions for clarification is always helpful.
I'm going to put your line on, Chris, I'm going to put my BZA hat on. Unnecessary hardship is exceptionally challenging for, I've been on the BZA now for 6 months, and it's the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
I see something that makes sense, but I cannot get over the hardship. I would suspect we'll see some people in the past 6 months at least may come back to the BZA again.
Yeah.
Because they may be able to get it through now.
Yeah,
I can digest, or I guess I can upset, or practical difficulty is easier for me to wrap my head around than unnecessary hardship is.
Yeah.
I would add that these two definitions were developed in cooperation and assistance from Dan Taylor and his law firm.
Any other comments? Okay, if not, I guess there is no official motion on here. We need to, need to get a motion to make a favorable recommendation of this item, which is 2024-39-OA to the town council.
So moved.
Second. All in favor of a favorable recommendation for docket number 2024-39-08 to the town council, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Next up on the agenda is docket number 2024-36-Z. Or sorry, we really want to get that 36-Z in there, don't we? 2024-45-OA, Town of Zionsville, Zionsville zoning jurisdiction, ordinance amendment to the Town of Zionsville zoning ordinance, section 194.220, fees. Petition proposes to replace Plan Commission as the setter of those fees with Town Council.
Right, that's about all there is to it. The zoning code used to contain the schedule of fees. That has been removed. What we didn't do, and we should have done at the time, is also reassign responsibility for establishing fees from the Plan Commission to the Town Council. So that's all we're doing here is clarifying the role of the Town Council, especially in light of the fact that they did remove the fees from the zoning code. So by doing this, then subsequent amendments to the fee schedule would not invoke the powers of the Plan Commission. Those decisions we made by the Town Council.
Any questions, comments? Okay. Can I get a motion? Oh, sorry. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment? So used to know that I just moved right on. All right. Not hearing anyone. If we can get a motion for docket number 2024-45-OA.
So moved.
To make a favorable recommendation?
Favorable recommendation, yes, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's fine, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of making a favorable recommendation to Town Council for docket number 2024-45-OA, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We are now down to other matters to be considered.
I'll be presenting these items.
Okay.
The first one, rules of procedure. We are still working on it. We're not ready to present any proposed amendments to your rules of procedure. So we'd like to continue that item to next month.
Okay.
That brings us to electronic tablets. Our printing costs are extremely high. You see the size of these packets, both for both Plan Commission and BZA. We were caught by our IT director making copies, and he had almost had a heart attack seeing all of the printing we're doing. And he suggested that, well, why don't we just simply provide a tablet for everybody on the board, both Plan Commission and BZA. In other words, that when you arrive for the meeting, instead of having a stack of paper, there would just be a tablet there. It'd all be set up. You just flip through for the materials. He said that the cost of buying the tablets would match the printing cost within just a few months. So it'd be much more cost efficient, saving trees and so forth. So we intend to, perhaps even next meeting, as soon as we can get the tablets, move away from all the paper and have a tablet waiting for you.
I think the other thing
on
that's
table.
nice is you'll have the most current version already preloaded,
That's
so
correct.
no, discrepancies between versions of what people have printed out.
So there's no action asking of you, just a heads up that's coming. Secondly, the development plan review process. I have a short statement to read. In April, staff presented a list of ordinance amendments to tackle now, as opposed to waiting for the completion of the comprehensive plan. So you may recall, a few months ago, we had a list of code amendment ideas for you. You asked you, do you think we should proceed on further research of these items? And you said yes. One of those items was the development plan review process. We are making progress on these other code amendments, but this evening we wanted to get your thoughts on what our thoughts are with regard to the development plan review process. The state code, the 1400 series, allows but does not require municipalities to designate zoning districts for which development plans are required prior to construction. The town has so far opted to require such plans in all zoning districts, including residential ones. Currently, the zoning ordinance requires all development plans to go to the Advisory Plan Commission for a public hearing and plan approval. This can cause and does cause some delay in getting projects to the construction phase due to the length of the hearing process and the very real potential of continuances at the commission meeting, which results in a minimum of another 30-day delay to the next regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting. It is important to note that a development plan is a strictly ministerial approval like primary plats. In other words, when we present to you a development plan and when we inform the Plan Commission that the development plan meets the town's adopted development standards, there's very little discretion remaining for the Plan Commission. In other words, does the project conform to our standards or does it not? So in other words, if the project complies, if the development plan complies with the town's zoning requirements, it must be approved. While development plans are currently approved by the Plan Commission as authorized by the state code, the state code also provides for staff approval of development plans. Because staff currently performs the necessary review of all plan elements compared to the applicable zoning ordinance requirements, we as staff are proposing that to be designated as the approval authority for all development plans. The planning and building director would then have the discretion to require certain projects to receive Plan Commission approval. Variances to development standards would still be subject to BZA approval, and waivers, as you've even seen this evening, would still be subject to Plan Commission approval. Staff believes this proposal would serve to streamline approvals and help to shorten overall project timelines, and this would be a more business-friendly approach to development plan approval. Other ideas relating to this could be perhaps development plan amendments being approved by staff rather than bringing those to you. We had, for example, Patachute this evening was a development plan amendment. Perhaps just take those off your plate and have those given staff review. Another option is to limit development plans, the types of development plans that are required to go to the Plan Commission. For example, there could be a rule where perhaps projects exceeding 10,000 square feet come to the Plan Commission. Also, at the rezoning stage, you may want certain projects to have development plan review, and others may not be so important. Staff may actually recommend this project is of such important, perhaps the location is very sensitive to Zionsville, or the scope or scale of the project is very large. Staff will recommend development plan review for those types of projects. Another option is to eliminate the public hearing component altogether for development plans. and make those discussion items, similar to what we're doing with minor amendments, right? We approve those and we inform the Plan Commission that we have approved this particular development plan. So we wanted to present these ideas, this concept to you this evening, get your feedback. I think from my perspective, you should know that the development plan review process, it is intensive in terms of staff time to prepare staff reports. It requires agenda preparation, public notice, and then, as we saw this evening, discussion and deliberation with the applicant, while at the same time, there's very little discretion available to the Plan Commission on these types of items. And also the delay for the developer or for the builder to have to go through a public hearing process, perhaps a 30-day delay before they can seek and obtain building permits. And also perhaps for the general public who come being notified of a public hearing and then only to be informed, as has happened in some cases, by the Plan Commission, that their hands are essentially tied. As long as the project meets the development code, there's really nothing that can be done to address their concerns other than just to air those in a public setting. So again, we wanted to bring these ideas, these thoughts to you this evening and get your feedback.
So I've got a couple thoughts. You mentioned, significant projects of importance, based on location, size, whatever, could still potentially get through that process. And I like that, I guess, to a degree, or at least some way that when that development plan is submitted, it's still online and accessible, so that at least the public is aware of it. I think it's important for adjacent landowners and other interested parties in the community to still be able to have access to it, and certainly if they so chose, write to the planning department or stop in and express any concerns they may have. Even though, obviously, if it meets the requirements, it meets the requirements, but I would hate to take some of that awareness off the table completely.
Thank you. And I should mention that if whatever changes we do decide will probably require a code amendment.
Yeah.
There's been several times that we have done a primary plat, a development plan at the same vote. And I'm sure that's crushing for the staff, and they put hours in putting this stuff together. We're just boom, boom, done. I agree with Chris. The public, so long as we can figure out how to keep the public knowledge out there. Clearly, if we're doing a rezone, we can't require development plan approval. I'm trying to think of anything else that would be out of the realm of things that.
I'll be honest, we have several that are, I'd say the majority, which are kind of a waste of time, given that there isn't anything contentious. They do fully comply, and it is a lot of prep, and it's a lot of paper. Development plans tend to have a lot of drawings and things, and so I don't disagree with trying to ease that burden somehow. And honestly, giving time back in these meetings to focus on things of greater importance. I feel bad for some public remonstrators that will sit here we've had some meetings go almost 6 hours, to hear a final item, when the majority of it was arguments over development plan items in a process that we were going to approve anyway because we were obligated to do so.
You're exactly right.
So, that's...
I don't mind being a sounding board for people, but at the end of the day, it's going to be very discouraging for them to say, I can't do anything about that.
I think it's discouraging, at least for me personally, sometimes too. It's like, I don't disagree with that, but it meets the requirement. There's not really much sometimes, or if anything, can be done.
If we're going to contemplate taking out the public presentation and the ability to publicly comment on something that maybe can't be affected, do we need to rethink our use of PUDs? Just in the sense that it's yet again, we've taken the zoning and let somebody else run the zoning. So I understand and mostly agree with everything you say, but at least the planning commission gets the feedback that, maybe we need to think about how to change the rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
That more things require waivers, and if we deny ourselves that feedback, we probably also ought to take a hard look at developer-led PUDs and whether or not, no, that folks, you're just gonna have to pursue zoning.
Or PUD, all development plans under PUD have to be approved by the plan. I see your point, but.
Yeah, I think the only difference I would have on a PUD is it's meant for multiple zoning categories in one singular development. Sometimes
Or
it's.
not, because.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know that I can think of a time where that isn't the case. In most of those cases,
If you're talking about a developer.
the developer, though, is asking for typically concessions also, not just the conglomerate of multiple zoning, uses, but also potentially downgraded or advantageous standards to be added, so that's more the area, I think, for me to focus on. Comments from that end? You guys are quiet.
Well, you guys have had a lot of good things to say.
I think it puts a lot of pressure on staff if they're independently making it meets the standard or it doesn't, and without any oversight. I haven't been here long enough to know if that's ever been challenged. We certainly are blessed to have very competent staff make these presentations, and I rely heavily on their recommendations every meeting. However, if I were one of them, I would probably be more comfortable knowing that there was some oversight still yet to be had for approval of, again, I realize and recognize very mundane and routine things, but I think that maintaining checks and balances is always a good idea. But I also see the benefit of increased efficiency by reducing our burden for things that may not require any input.
There is something to the public accountability, even if the outcome can't be.
That's very true.
Now, is there a way to streamline it? Yes. I mean, you described, Mike, some middle grounds that, to me, might be more attractive.
All right.
Well, then what I'm hearing is I think that we can, on staff, take your input and come back to you with some more, concrete suggestions.
Yeah, thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is Mr. Hurst asked that I give you an update on solar wind regulation. And it was very timely to do that because Owen Young and our staff had just presented to me last week an ordinance draft of regulating solar and wind. So what I thought I'd do is just go through kind of conceptually where we are with regard to regulating solar and wind. What we've come down to from a framework standpoint is there are essentially two scales of project. Personal scale, like personal solar panels that someone put on their roof or have in their yard, versus utility level or utility grade solar panel farms, right? Which are, they're commercial and they give power back to the grid. They're designed to be energy generators that are and that energy is sold to the grid. So there's personal scale and utility scale solar panels. Likewise with wind, there would be personal scale wind turbines that are really just intended to provide energy to the homeowner or the property owner, versus again like wind farm scale, utility scale wind energy conservation systems that are designed to sell power back to the grid. So within that framework and getting back, talking about solar energy, the personal scale solar energy facilities, again, those would be like roof-mounted solar panels or solar panels on the ground, designed to only provide energy to the property owner. Those would be, conceptually, those would be allowed by right. on the roof of a house, and that there would be development standards applicable, building setbacks, height restrictions, things of that nature, that would allow someone to have personal solar energy panels on their property without having to go through a hearing process, and it would just be a permitting process. On the other hand, utility scale solar energy would have to be rezoned to a special use district. And I think we've talked about this at the Plan Commission, having a very rigorous process for large scale solar or wind facilities. So that the utility scale solar energy facility would have to be rezoned to a special use district, and Owen calls that out as a SU16. And if the rezoning was granted, that would be a public hearing process through the Plan Commission. The property owner presents their idea for a large solar farm, energy generating facilities, energy being sold back to the grid. In a public setting like this, public presentation, public notice, Plan Commission votes on a recommendation. That recommendation goes to Town Council. The Town Council decides whether they think this is a good idea to have a utility scale solar energy facility in the town limits. If the rezoning is granted by the Town Council, then a special exception through the Board of Zoning Appeals would then be required. So the zoning's established within that zoning district. The code would say that a utility scale solar energy facility is subject to BZA approval of a special exception. So the project goes back to the BZA, another public hearing process, public notice, vote by the BZA on the land use. So Plan Commission votes on the zoning, Board of Zoning Appeals votes on the land use through a special exception. And then comes development plan, right? So then they have to come back through again for development plan approval, which is another public hearing with the plan, which as it is currently, as we currently have, another Plan Commission hearing on development plan approval. During that process, we've proposed several things for the Plan Commission to consider, namely future abandonment of that facility, perhaps bonding in case that the facility is abandoned, standards relating to how that facility is connected to the grid, guarantees regarding short-term and long-term maintenance, and procedures for resolving complaints, among many other things that would be written into the ordinance. So there would be a lot of things to consider at both the BZA and by the Plan Commission if the Town Council granted a rezoning. If the project is able to go through that process, then permitting would come. And again, there's development standards that would be written into the ordinance, and they have to get a permit, not just go through our permitting procedure to establish a utility scale solar energy facility. And again, there are development standards drafted already in the ordinance that address setbacks, landscaping and buffering, waivers that may be approved by the Plan Commission, noise standards, stormwater permits for drainage, road repair costs, glare, from solar panels, lighting, fencing, and so on. So there's a lot already drafted in the ordinance to address a wide range of potential issues that could come with the solar facility. Next topic is wind. Wind energy conversion systems. Within the draft we're looking at, there's a huge set, there's like 2 or 3 pages of just definitions for wind energy conversion systems. The process, similar to personal solar scale, there would be small scale wind energy conversion systems. We drafted this language based on the work that McKenna and Associates had drafted in that zoning code. We asked them to present ideas for regulating solar and wind, so we paid for the ordinance, so we're using that information that McKenna had prepared. Within that ordinance draft, there were standards and procedures for small scale wind energy conversion systems. Small scale would be defined in part by the height of the wind energy conversion system or wind turbine. For a small scale, that would be 80 feet. In order to qualify to get a permit for a small scale wind energy conversion system, the owner would have to go through the special exception process in any zoning district. So every zoning district could potentially have a small-scale wind energy conversion system, but it would require a hearing through the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special exception. And then there are development standards regarding setbacks, lot size, ground clearance, noise emissions, safety requirements, signage, lighting, access, fencing, and more. Okay, those things would be among the development standards. They would be addressed as part of the BZA hearing. If the project gets through Board of Zoning Appeals, then there would be the permitting process, and we hold this project to all of those standards. Also, there would be similar language about abandonment. You know, for some reason, the energy facility was no longer being used, there would be rules, and it's pretty extensive language about how to make sure that the facility is properly abandoned or removed from the property. With regard to large-scale wind energy conversion systems, similar to large-scale solar energy facilities, large-scale wind energy conversion systems would require a rezone to a special use district, SU16, followed by a special exception through the Board of Zoning Appeals, followed by development plan review, currently with the Plan Commission. That process is extensive. It would involve environmental assessments, background sound studies, background vibration studies, economic impact of the proposed facility on surrounding properties, safety manual, repair procedures, a wind assessment study, noise modeling, visual impact assessment, site lighting, tip height of the turbines, site insurance, setbacks, lot size, ground clearance, blade clearance, braking of the wind turbine, signage, road damage assessments, drainage, stormwater drainage permitting, liability insurance, coating and color of the turbines, protections to adjoining property owners, annual reporting of the facility to the town, abandonment procedures, decommissioning procedures, complaint resolution, and perhaps even an escrow account for the BZA that would run with the BZA in case we needed to hire a consultant or spend money to do further types of assessments that we can't even predict right now. So all of this is also drafted in the ordinance that we would tend to bring to you sometime in hopefully the near future.
And you all did all that since Wednesday? You guys have been working on this, I'm well aware, for months.
Yes, that's exactly right. And then after all that development plan review comes permitting, right? And then we follow through on those development standards. So this is the direction we're going right now with the draft ordinance that's in my hands right now. We're still debating, through this stuff, what seems reasonable, even if we understand it. It's highly technical, decibel levels, and so on. Yes.
So I did have a question.
Yeah.
When you're looking at personal use versus utility scale, I would recommend is there a way we can quantify a personal use? Because what happens is people put panels on their house, go on vacation, they sell the power back to the grid. But I'm thinking of someone who puts a larger array in, and is there a way of or distinguishing between a personal use and a utility use?
Probably.
Because they're going to be, the argument can be made, well, I'm just, got a barn, I'm putting these panels on the roof. We're not using all the usage, but we're selling it back. It is a significant amount of income. Do we do it on a percentage of income, kilowatts per?
I think you could do it as a percentage of the peak demand that the house would draw. So if the house would draw 1,000 kilowatt hours, we would allow them to have a system that was 150% of that, but no greater. Therefore, there would be some revenue potential, but not on a utility scale.
The other thing that, because this is an active thing in the agricultural world, the grazing rights, is there something that needs to be somehow addressed, the grazing management of this property versus landscape, or hiring someone to mow it? what is acceptable landscape, or what is acceptable grazing animals, and, you know, there's a few things in that area.
Well, and the other thing that came up last
They
time
eat the
was,
lines.
was trying to put pollinator,
And then,
cover
Yes.
underneath those. I also know we've got a friend who ironically works for a solar company, and they were trying to figure out how to maintain these, so he bought 100 sheep, and now he takes them from one plot to the next and makes money on the side with the sheep eating all the grass underneath the panels from plot to plot, so.
pollinators, just the same areas, and
Yeah.
multiple uses of the same parcel.
Yeah,
Most ordinances do contain a vegetation growth provision of some kind, saying that, you know, you just can't let these areas grow up. So that would be a standard provision. And you don't have to, you wouldn't really have to start from scratch on the definitions of personal and commercial or industrial. There is a statutory definition already in place. It focuses on, you wouldn't have to accept that, but at least get you a starting point. And it focuses on two things. One is faceplate, how many megawatts are produced. There is a threshold in the state law. And then also, what's it used primarily for? Is this generating for this site, or is it generating for wholesale use? And something in between those two is an industrial or large commercial site that, you know, has a pretty big solar field, but they use it for their own power only. So personal is a word, makes you think of residential, but a lot of companies have these, but none of that power goes on the grid. That they could store it. Some schools have this now. They store it on site. It's only for their use, but there is a buyback feature in their contracts with the utilities. So, but there's a statutory kind of framework on these definitions, and then local governments can obviously tweak that. But if you think about it, megawatt capacity is really key to how you view what you're looking at, and then what is the power being used for. And typically, there's less regulation of generating your own power for your own use. And but this, I'll just say, but I mean, I like the approach of having a rezone be required for commercial and industrial uses, and then the special exception, because it is important that, in my opinion, that you and the town council have a role in the decision-making process. In many counties, because the battles here are being fought mainly at the county level, where they said, we'll just say you have to have a special exception. You had situations where the Plan Commission and BZA, now they're not in the process at all, and the BZA made a decision that they didn't like very much. And it created a lot of problems. And also what is being experienced out there is that I'll be honest with you, because I had litigation on the wind side where I defended a county, and then on the solar side, I was very involved in that as well, is that the initial thought was that these, especially solar farms, were going to be less than 2,000 acres. Pulaski County is currently embroiled in, I think, its third case involving the same site, and that site is now 13,000 acres. And so the scale of what we thought industrial and commercial meant has changed significantly beyond what any government imagined it would be. 13,000 acres is pretty large. It didn't start that way when it was proposed. By the time it got to the BZA, though, it was over 13,000 acres. So in order to provide the most thorough protection for the town, this proposal, the way Owen has conceptualized it, does provide what I would consider to be the most protection for the town, in order for us to make sure we're doing what we want to do by having the Plan Commission involved, town council involved, and then if you get through those hoops, then have to go get a special exception before the BZA. That's about as strict as you could make it. So
and then back
I
to planning staff for a permit.
Yeah, then you gotta deal with Jody and Rhonda.
Okay, yes, so it's in the works. And then last thing is that there's a special meeting being called, a joint session with the town council and you for July 15th at 8:30 a.m. here. It would be immediately following the town council meeting on Monday, July 15th. HWC, who is the consultant, town's consultant for the comprehensive plan, will be asking you questions, asking town council and plan commission questions during this meeting about your thoughts of priorities for the comprehensive plan, some focused questions about your vision for growth in the town. So we're going to advertise it in case we have a quorum of plan commission members coming to the meeting. But you are, if you can come, we'd really appreciate it.
Thank you. So we have one more item not on the agenda. Unfortunately, tonight I'm announcing my resignation from Plan Commission. My resignation is a result of perceived conflicts of interest by some related to my profession as an architect and my firm's work for clients in Zionsville. I'm taking action to ensure that the Plan Commission, that their decisions are seen as being beyond reproach. To date, I've recused myself from any issues involving me personally, my firm, or any client my firm may have, regardless if that client has work in Zionsville specifically. I've enjoyed nearly 4 years serving the town under 2 administrations and hope I'm called on again in the future to serve in this role. I've enjoyed working with and respect all my peers, past and present, on both the Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals, and wish them the best as they continue to serve our town. While I won't be involved in the Commission moving forward, I hope to continue to share my expertise to help shape the Zionsville of the future that we all deserve. So with that, thank you very much. And if I can get a motion to adjourn, it would be appreciated.
I want to thank you, Chris, and I'll give you your motion to you've been a great asset for us up here. You've been on both terms, or both. You really are. You're going to be greatly missed, my friend. I really am going to miss having your expertise up here, and I appreciate and I understand where you're coming from on this.
Thank you. All right. So, motion to adjourn accepted. Thank you.